And we're talking about real estate.
Yeah.
And what a year last year was.
Crazy.
You know, COVID came,
Yep.
and it seems that everything kind of changed, and especially
Totally.
the real estate market.
It did.
You know, you don't see that many signs anymore. You don't see that
No.
many houses for sale anymore.
No.
You know, how did that impact you?
Well,
COVID, I mean.
COVID brought some really interesting changes to the market
Yep.
in Renfrew County and, of course, across Canada. We at first had a little bit of a panic, as everybody did in every industry when COVID was hitting. Okay, now what happens? You know, everyone's on lockdown. How do we move forward?
Yep.
So I think at first we kind of anticipated that things would bottom out, but that's not what really happened. What happened was it led to a shortage of inventory on the market. And the demand was still there. The necessity was still there. There's always a need for people to move. Sometimes it's voluntary, but often it's a result of a job change or a death or a
Or in case of
marriage
Petawawa,
or
like
a
postings and
divorce.
stuff?
Postings, yes. Postings were not as high
Okay.
in 2020 as they should have been had it been a regular year. So that's part of the reason that locally we had thought, okay, now what is going to happen? One of the interesting things that developed out of that is we saw more boomers coming from the cities that were cashing out on their bigger homes, like say $1 million.
Yeah.
They could buy a home for here, around here for about $400,000 or $500,000 that was really beautiful and still have a nice nest egg.
Yes.
We've seen that trend actually for the last few years, but when COVID hit, people wanted to get out of the city, and people in that demographic, people in that position that were able to do that. So that's what made the demand high in our area, despite the fact that we weren't having a big posting season at the Garrison.
Yeah, because I know that's a fact too, because I know when I first moved here back in 2006, my wife and I, we were living in an apartment in Petawawa there, and we were grandfathered in because my wife got elected. We were paying like $500 a month or something. Everybody else in the apartment was like $800 a month, and it was just a little 2-bedroom apartment. My brother, living in Toronto, High Park, Toronto, had a house probably a little bit smaller than ours, still 2-bedroom, and he was paying, I think, something like $1,500 to $2,000 a month for that there. And even his house he has now in High Park, it's like, I think that's like almost $1 million, $750,000, something like that. And you could get a house the exact same size as that here for probably like 400 and something. It's just amazing how the
houses
market's
around
different.
here are definitely a lot cheaper than a city. You can get a little condo for $2 million in Toronto. Oh, God.
So, like you said, things change, and obviously it changed the way you can sell houses at the time. Now, did you get forced online? Did you have to, even with viewings, because people were told to stay home, did you have to do like Zoom in or Facebook Lives or something from a house saying, okay, here's what it looks like? Or how did that change your selling process?
So at the beginning of the pandemic, the real estate industry and realtors were deemed essential.
Okay.
So we had to come up with a way to do business, and sometimes what we saw several times was we would go into a home with a camera, usually on our cell phone, and use something like Zoom, FaceTime, something like that, and do a virtual visit of the home with the client who might be in another city. And they would purchase based on that. It also changed the way we marketed, though. We went back to doing the 360-degree tours. We did those several years back here and didn't find them as effective. People liked the video for a while first, better on YouTube, for example. And then when the pandemic hit, using the 360-degree virtual became better because you can actually walk through the rooms, measure, use measuring tools, and it gave a lot more of a perspective on the home itself. It made it more comfortable for the buyer who hadn't visited the home to actually place an offer. And so we did see quite a bit of that in 2020, where people were purchasing homes sight unseen.
That's crazy.
And I couldn't imagine that happening before.
I can't imagine going to a house without seeing a house, or buying a house without seeing a house.